Hey guys, welcome to a different kind of video. This is going to be more informative than anything. I'm going to go over all the changes from the end of May to the most recent patch that occurred on August 20th. Alright, let's do this. First up, we have Roadhog. Take a breather charges faster, goes for 50 less health from 450 to 400. Breath cooldown between breaths reduced by 0.25 seconds. Whole Hog knocks back more and just does one less damage. His health went down from 650 to 600. His Take a Breather now only does 40% damage reduction instead of 50%. His Pick Pen also was changed. He has area damage after activating it was increased from 30 damage to 45 damage per second. The recovery time was reduced from 0.55 seconds to 0.4 seconds. That's the recovery time that it takes to put it out, and for you to be able to shoot again. And the cooldown now begins immediately when used instead of after a short delay. On to Sigma. His rock now does 120 damage, 80 of which is direct impact. And also his ult needs line of sight again, no more ulting through walls. So for those two heroes, Roadhog, overall nerf, I would say. He's not the 700 health behemoth that he used to be, though I feel he does more damage. Sigma, overall buff. Diva, she has plus 10 damage to boosters, so that's 25 damage on booster impact. The weapon spread was reduced was considerably reduced, so now she does a lot more damage from 3.75 degrees to 3.375 degrees. So that's from 3.750 to 3.375. Her defense matrix got increased from 3 seconds to 3.5 seconds, then it got toned back down to 3 seconds. Overall buff. She's a force to be reckoned with. You can't just approach a diva anymore. You have to kind of be careful. She will kill you and you won't even realize it because you're not used to her killing that fast. Trucker Queen changes. Her knife now pulls tanks farther. Rampage only takes about half a second compared to the previous 0.75 seconds to activate. Commanding Shout. Overhealth was increased from 150 to 170 HP, 175 HP. The wound damage for the self-healing multiplier was increased from 2 to 2.5. Orisa got some changes. Flynn cooldown went back to 8 seconds. Fortify now lasts 4 seconds instead of 3.5. And her Javelin also got put from 60 damage to 80 damage. So both Queen and Diva and Orisa are now stronger, but they're stronger against each other because Queen's overhealth getting increased by 25 and Orisa's Javelin getting increased by 20 damage, they still equalize out. I think in the matchup, they're right around the same rate because Orisa has a shorter spin cooldown. That's the 8 seconds. And the self-healing got put up another half a multiplier. So you gain a little bit more health for the little bit less time you're going to be able to shoot the Orisa for health, or melee her really. And Reinhardt got some changes. His pin knockdown between collisions was reduced from 2 seconds to 1.7 seconds. His barrier field, or shield, the maximum health increased from 1400 to 1600. The barrier generation rate increased from 140 to 160 health a second, and the charge impact damage was increased from 275 to 100 to accommodate for all the health changes. Overall, he's better than he used to be. I feel like he's a bit more playable, and he's actually really good He still has his moments where he can't reach anything and he can't do much, but way better. Doomface. The best defense passive got increased from 35 HP to 40 HP per target, and the delay before that HP begins to drain got up to 3 seconds from 1 second. Buff. Doom is a lot more stable now. He doesn't falter as much as he used to. Overall buff. Mauga. His overrun. Stomp damage got increased from 60 to 75. He got more knockback damage from 25 to 30. So he does 10 more damage, really, when you press the ability. And you press it and you get it on someone. And this cardiac overdrive, or cardiac arrest, as I like to call it. It was reduced to a 3-second duration, but in turn, he has 100% lifesteal. You heard it, 100% lifesteal. Damage reduction was increased from 30 to 40%, but the allies only receive half of that 50%. Boy, we're gonna retry that. Allies only receive 50% lifesteal and 20% damage reduction when in his aura. Overall buff. He's a lot stronger. He's able to live longer and do more in fights, but it's shorter. It's short lasted, so he's good for like rush, I feel, which I think was his always intended purpose. Not exactly like brawl or poke, how people did play him when he came out. Ramatra. His nemesis form got a cooldown increase from 7 to 8 seconds. The base armor was reduced from 100 to 75, and his base health was reduced from 275 to 50. But when you press Nemesis, you get an additional 75 armor, which combats the 50 base armor and 50 base HP you lose in the entire form. And its pummel damage was increased from 60 to 65 a punch. I think buff, because you're able to live longer on Ram, you feel a bit tankier, and some Winston changes. He only had 2. Sorry, Winston players. Secondary fire charge time boost from 1 second to 0.85. Makes it a little bit more responsive when you press it. And his maximum health on Primal Rage, yes boys, it did get upped from 500 to 700. Overall buff. Wrecking Ball. His quad cannons got an automatic reload time of 1.6 seconds instead of 2. So you're able to come back to the fight a lot faster. And really, it does help when you're fighting an enemy and you run out of ammo, go in ball form, you actually get it back in time. Tested this. And his adaptive shields now give up to 50 overhealth per ally, and up to 50 overhealth per target, grant allies up to 75 HP each. Now I've noticed you should use this ability on your way out of a fight before the timer runs off and you don't need that extra HP. Zarya. Sorry, wait. Wrecking Ball. Buff. Overall buff. Zarya, her particle barrier has both bubbles got increased to 11 seconds, and their duration was reduced to 2.25 seconds instead of 2.5 seconds. And her damage modes, her primary and her secondary, her beam and her alt fire, her blob. The minimum damage was increased from 47 to 55, and her secondary fire damage was increased from 95 to 110. Also, I apologize. That is actually not for primary fire, only secondary fire got their damage buffed. So overall, she got nerfed. For bubbles, longer cooldowns, so she doesn't get charged as fast. And her secondary fire changes were just to kind of equal out with the DPS, so secondary fire can just be better and do the burst damage like it's meant to, because as of recent, it's been hard to do that. Alright, now we're done with the tank changes. If you're not a tank player, yo, get on out of here. Now on to the DPS players. Hey guys, I hope you're all doing wonderful. So we've got the first one, Ash. Bob now holds the tank passive. Okay, cool. Overall buff for Bob. He's got the armor, and he's got, well, if somehow he manages to get armor, he's got the armor buff, but now he's got the knockback buff. Sorry, Lucio. Overall buff. Cassidy! He had quite a few changes. Fan the Hammer now does 45 damage a bullet instead of 50. Combat roll was reduced from 75% damage reduction to 50% damage reduction. Flashbang is back, but not really. It hinders enemies for 1.2 seconds and slows them by 50% instead of actually keeping them locked in place, and you can't crouch during it. It does 45 explosive damage with a 12-second cooldown. Deadeye. This is a pretty impactful change I've noticed in game. Be careful and keep running away from that McCree. He will chase you down. The movement speed penalty now scales down over time from 70% to 35%. The damage reduction scale scales down over time from 40% to 0%. No more 75% damage reduction on that ultimate, fellas. Sorry. And his primary Peacekeeper. Primary fall-off range was rescaled from 25 meters, 25 and 35 meters, to a minimum of 20 meters and a maximum of 30. Overall buff. He's a lot harder to deal with than he used to be, but I feel that he's more effective on your teammate's side than he is the enemy. Like, in the middle of a fight, I feel like as a McCree player, you're able to help people more, and you're able to kind of be a little bit more of an active player instead of just lobbing your grenades or playing long shot. So I would say overall buff that Deadeye is a dangerous thing. Junkrat primary has a special feature now, which the projectile size gets reduced by half after the second bounce. And now the projectiles deserve a little bit more velocity on each bounce, because that lets you be a little bit more accurate and do more trick shots. Overall Junkrat buff. May. Her endothermic blaster, right click or secondary fire, now does 85 damage with slightly smaller projectile size from 0.15 to 0.12 to be a little bit more accurate. Buff. Her health is now 225 instead of 250. Her concussive blast did 30 damage, and now it does 0. The explosive radius was actually largened. It now knocks back 8. The radius is now 8 meters as opposed to 6 meters, and it knocks back more by 11%. Overall, I'm gonna call that a buff. Reaper. Shadow Step. Now casts in 1.2 seconds instead of 1.5. Makes him get into fights noticeably faster. It is a good tactic in situations once thought not worth it. And his weapon spread was reduced from 6.5 degrees to 6 degrees. Boy, he's a lot more dangerous. He hits shots more, and that 1.2 seconds makes so much of a difference. You're able to kind of shadow step in the middle of the fight and actually get away with it more often. Not every time. Don't throw. I'm warning you. I don't care. Do it anyway. Overall buff. Secondary fire got her scaling reduced from a minimum of 30 damage to 130 damage on her railgun, and now the railgun does a minimum of 1 damage to 100 damage to 4 damage boost. And the secondary projectile railgun no longer requires overclock to pierce enemy players, and she shoots faster from 14 bullets a second, 16 bullets a second. Her overclock gets 120 energy a second instead of 100. The railgun had a spread reduction from 2 degrees to 1.6, and critical hits with the railgun now grant 10 energy, and critical hits with Nope, nope, yeah. Energy degeneration rate decreased from 33 to 15 per second after 7 seconds. So she loses her railgun charge slower and gets it more with critical hits, and overclock makes it to where you can kind of shoot, not fully charged shots more to finish off enemies. Overall, buff. Sombra. Virus impact damage was increased from 25 to 35 damage. Still does the same amount of damage over time, but that impact does 10 more damage. Her in stealth, she moves 60% faster as opposed to 45% faster previously. Overall buff. Symmetra. Her beam charges up 25% faster, and she has a 75 total health now. Torbjorn. His base armor was increased from 50 to 75, and he has a total of 300 HP. Ana. Her sleep. No, I can't do Ana yet. No. Symmetra. Buff. Torbjorn. Buff. Alari. Her damage was increased on Outburst. Her little, jump was increased from 10 damage to 25 damage. And her healing pylon, per projectile, per little health bullet, was increased from 30 to 40, but now it only heals Alari for 20 health a second instead of 30. And the max health was increased from 100 to 125 health on a healing pylon, and the solar rifle, her gun got an ammo reduction by 2, not much. But the big one, Captain Sun. Projectile environment collision size reduced from 0.15 to 0 meters. That means you won't really be getting that thing caught on any environments. Almost ever. And the pylon cooldown got increased to 14 seconds, and her ult costs 12% more. So you might find yourself getting Alariel a little bit later. And Ana's Sleep Dart has a decreased effect for duration-wise on tanks. It went from 3.5 seconds, 3 seconds, so tanks don't feel that they are slept as long. It's an overall Ana buff, and Alari buff. Kiriko, her headshot multiplier was reduced from 2.5 to 2 times normal damage. But the damage of each kunai was increased from 45 to 60, and the recovery time went from 0.50 to 0.55, so she shoots a little bit slower. Overall, Kiriko buff. Lifeweaver. His healing now charges passively at a reduced rate, and I've looked at it and it's quite fast, I must say. It's a very good thing. It promotes him doing more damage more often. And holding it, when you're holding a full charge, it no longer reduces your movement speed. And here's the big one, pedal platform. Duration only counts down while the platform is raised, and the platform now resets if no one is standing on it for 2 seconds. So, if you didn't mean to go up, it's coming back down. Great, and you can use it to get back out. And the duration of the pedal platform was increased from 10 to 12 seconds. But the health of it was reduced from 400 to 300. And his rejuvenating dash, had its healing reduced from 60 to 45. So it's not... Lifeweaver is better. He is functionally better, stronger, good buff. But you might find yourself and your pedal dying a little bit more often because of the health reductions and the healing reduction, just a little. His dash is not quite the health reset that it used to be. Overall buff. Lucio. He just got his knockback nerfed by 10%. Sorry, buddy. That's a nerf. Mercy. Mercy players, talk to you. Don't kill me. Not yet. Primary fire. Her healing was increased from 55 health to 60 health a second. And the damage boost increased from 25% to 30%. Okay, DPS, I'm talking. No, don't kill me. Don't do it. No, please. No, stop. No, I know this may be a bad thing. And honestly, I'm not a fan. This is not good. Bring it back down to 25%. You're making things die a lot faster. And now anyone who has a damage buff to them glows blue, so it's easier to see them on the enemy POV and team POV to see who's getting a damage buff and if you should approach them or not. Use that information wisely. Moira, her damage got increased from 60 to 65 damage a second. Zenyatta's ultimate costs 10% less. That's a buff to both Mercy, Moira, and Zenyatta. And now, quality of life and buffs from the playtest. She has been buffed. She is in ranked. She has 225 health. She shoots 28 shots per second, and her torpedoes do 85 impact healing and 50 healing over time. And her hyper ring, her speed ring, goes out when you deploy it. It goes farther by 3.5 meters, and the cooldown is reduced from 16 to 14 seconds. And the gun now indicates with visual sounds, with visuals, firing sounds updated to indicate when the weapon is at low ammo. When you're healing people with your gun, it's more noticeable that they're full health, kind of like Ana as you fill them up. Okay, and now for the torpedoes. Let's say you had no lock-ons. The cooldown is only 2 seconds for that, if you did not hit anybody with the torpedoes. And line of sights were improved to find better targets with hitboxes in view. Added range forgiveness of an extra 5 meters on current targets that might move beyond the max 40 meters range. The local cancel sound was increased in volume to be more noticeable when you're playing. The ally and enemy impact sounds were updated to be more noticeable for the Juno player. Healing torpedoes have new impact visuals when impacting enemy barriers and when clipping near walls. Her dash, it now floats better than when it did in the playtest, and you actually can float up structures or float under a doorway, stuff like that. It's pretty responsive. And that should do it for this video. But I know you're going to go to the end of this recording. Go back to about 25 minutes and wait for an interruption. Now, we shall give the end of this. So, I hope this can help you all. And that's it. Share it. Don't share it. I hope this was at all helpful. Hey, let's say this. Earlier, there were some changes. Only 2. Tracer's damage got reduced from 6 to 5.5 per bullet. Polari's solo rifle, her maximum damage got reduced from 75 to 70, and the minimum damage got reduced from 25 to 20. Juno's gun had her damage increase from 7 to 8 per bullet, and Juno's glide boost had her cooldown reduced from 8 to 6 seconds. Good day.